The 66th Regiment of Foot was an infantry regiment of the British Army, formed in 1758 and amalgamated with the 49th Regiment of Foot into Princess Charlotte of Wales's in 1881. The regiment was raised by the redesignation of the 2nd Battalion, 19th Regiment of Foot in April 1758, ranked as the 66th Regiment of Foot. In 1782 they took a county title as the 66th Regiment of Foot. History. In 1764 the regiment was posted to Jamaica to relieve the 49th Regiment and then fought during the Peninsular War of 1803, gaining many battle honours. In 1816 it was sent to St. Helena to guard Napoleon after his defeat at Waterloo, and in 1821 the Grenadiers of the 20th Foot and the 66th Foot carried his body at his funeral. The regiment afterwards returned to England and had postings to Gibraltar and the West Indies. Battle of Maiwand. The regiment took part in the 1880 Battle of Maiwand, where the bravery of the English soldiers astounded the Afghans. The British had effectively lost the battle, and the Indian regiments fighting alongside the 66th were routing in disorder from the battlefield. Some men of the 66th were caught up in the rout, but most of the remaining members of the regiment gathered around Lt. Colonel Galbraith and tried to fight a rearguard action to protect the retreating Indian soldiers. 140 of them made a stand at the Mundabad ravine, which ran along the south side of the battlefield, but were forced back with heavy losses. The Queen's colour and the regimental colour became a focus of attention, and several officers and NCOs were killed trying to keep the colours aloft. Eventually 56 survivors made it to the shelter of a walled garden and made a further stand, while a few more ran to follow the retreating Indian soldiers. Eventually the 56 were whittled down to only 11 men, 2 officers and 9 other ranks. These last 11 men charged out of the garden and fought, first with rifle fire and then with bayonets when they ran out of bullets, until they were overcome. An Afghan artillery officer described their end. These men charged from the shelter of the garden and died with their faces to the enemy, fighting to the death. So fierce was the charge, and so brave their actions, no Afghan dared to approach to cut them down. So, standing in the open, back-to-back, firing steadily, every shot counting, surrounded by thousands, these British soldiers died. It was not until the last man was shot down that the Afghans dared to advance on them. The behavior of those last 11 was the wonder of all who saw it. Officers who died in the last stand in the garden included Captain Walter Roberts, Lieutenant Morris Edward Rayner, 2nd Lieutenant Walter Rice Olivier and 2nd Lieutenant Arthur Honeywood. Lieutenant Richard Trevershute, who had been ferrying ammunition to the soldiers, was not seen in the garden by any of the survivors, and although he may have been killed there, it is also possible that he was one of the last 11. The only officer who can definitely be identified as one of the 11 is Lieutenant Hind of the Bombay Grenadiers. William McGonagall wrote of the battle in his poem The Last Berkshire 11, The Heroes of Maiwand, which includes mention of Bobby, the regimental pet dog, who survived the battle, and they broke from the enclosure, and followed by the little dog, and with excitement it was barking savagely, and leaping like a frog, and from the field the last 11 refused to retire, and with fixed bayonets they charged on the enemy in that sea of fire. Dr. John Watson, fictional narrator of the Sherlock Holmes stories, was wounded while attached to the regiment at the Battle of Maiwand. He was on attachment from his own regiment, the 5th Northumberland Fusiliers. In 1886 a large memorial sculpture, the Maiwand Lion, was erected in Forbury Gardens reading, Battle Honours. Battle honours won by the regiment were Peninsular War, Douro, Talavera, Albuera, Vitoria, Pyrenees, Nivelle, Nive, Orths, Peninsula. Second Afghan War, Kandahar 1880, Afghanistan 1879–80. Colonels of the regiment. Colonels of the regiment were 66th Regiment of Foot 1758 to 1758, Lt. Gen. Edward Sanford 1758 to 1763, Marge Gen. John Lafozel 1763 to 1776, Gen. Lord Adam Gordon 1776 to 1794, Lt. Gen. Joseph Gabet 66th Regiment of Foot 1794 to 1808, Gen. John Thomas de Burgh 13th Earl of Clanricarde 1808 to 1829, Gen. Oliver Nichols 1829 to 1835, Gen. Sir William Anson, 1st Baronet KCB 1835 to 1859, Gen. Richard Blunt 1859 to 1870, Gen. Edward Wells Bell 1870 to 1881, Gen. Thomas Henry Johnston